Bay Area Discs 2016 Youth Ultimate Coaching Conference.
Thank all of you. So far, this has been really great to be here and to hear all these different ideas and thoughts. And a lot, as I was thinking about this talk, was like, oh, that's something that totally relates to what we've been doing with GUM. And so I'm excited to kind of share some of the things of where we're at. Dan and I are going to do this in two little parts and get you guys involved in hearing where we're at, where we're going, and how to get the community more involved. So I'm going to give you just a brief introduction on GUM for those who aren't super familiar with it, tell you a little bit about the history of where it came from, introduce you to the GUM team and what our 5 priorities have been. And we're going to then focus on 2 of those. Dan's going to talk about the National Volunteer Outreach Structure, and I'll be talking about the curriculum launch, which you will be the first ones to see this morning for the middle school level. And then we'll have a little question and answer at the end. So this photo is a little hard to see, but it is a photo we've used in a lot of GUM presentations. And for me, this photo really signifies when GUM started to build from an idea and become something in action. This was at the U16 Girls YCC tryouts for the first year that U16 Girls was going to exist in Seattle. And a lot of players who were out at this tryout then have had voices. You'll actually see some of their names on some of these slides. And got involved in the girls' ultimate movement. Up till that point, there had been kind of a spark of ideas. And the way GUM came to be, Mike Levinguth started talking with Zara Kadu and myself about how do we get more girls participating in ultimate? What can we do? And those ideas started, and then what kind of came from that's really neat. Mike really gave a lot of empowerment to the voices of us and of the community to build, to think outside the box, to build new ideas. How can we get more girls playing? How can we retain the girls who are playing? How can we create programs that work well for girls? One of the ideas that came up multiple times today was this idea of relationships, how important those relationships are and that sense of belonging for girls in sports. And that's something that we've tried to really embrace in GUM, and getting the girls' voices involved as well. And so from that kind of sparked this movement that a lot of people have contributed to in really big ways, and you'll hear about more of them today. So if you click, you should be able to find a play button. So this, do you want to pause? This is the video that we showed at the US Open 2 years ago, right after that photo was taken. That is kind of how we put GUM together. It had been a lot of fun building. Zara has a lot of great organization experience in how to set up structure and how to build systems, and she brought a lot of that energy in. Mike was able to really link us with communities around the country and pulling all of that together. And so we wanted to be able to share in a more interactive way how much fun this had been. So right before the US Open, we created this video, and so figured for some of you may have seen it already. Hopefully it's... Yes.
Ultimate is the fastest growing team sport in the US, and we've got a lot to celebrate. From 2007 to 2013, total USA Ultimate membership skyrocketed almost 75%. Last summer at the World Games, the United States national teams won an amazing 36-0 across 4 squads. With such strong role models to look up to, it's no surprise that today, over 13,000 youth are playing organized ultimate in the US.
Despite the amazing amount of growth and success our community is experiencing, not all divisions are growing equally. The development and growth of Girls Ultimate is quickly being outpaced by the explosion of male players at the youth level. Of those 13,000 youth playing, only 3,000 are girls. For the last several years, organizers have been talking about how to increase the number of girls playing. But now, it's time to act in order to shift this trend.
USA Ultimate recognized it was time to tackle this issue proactively, to build systems for girls, to prioritize recruiting and retaining more girls and women in our sport. The Girls Ultimate movement seeks to create sustainable national programming to do just that. To capture the knowledge from around the country, GUM's first step was to convene a national task force to brainstorm proposals for USA Ultimate to adopt. The task force brings a mix of experiences, dedication to girls and women in ultimate, and geographic diversity. Once a group of 35 dedicated task force members were chosen, they were placed into 5 working groups.
These groups were asked to dream big and be creative. Really, the sky was the limit. Each group looked at the issue of increasing girls' participation from a different angle. Building systems, best practices, consciousness raising, growth versus development, and coaching.
First, the groups worked to define the needs within their topic. Next, it was time to dream. If there were no barriers, what would they do to change the future of Girls Ultimate? Finally, each group narrowed down their ideas to 5 action items to be presented to the task force at large. GUM wanted to hear from girls playing Ultimate as well. In May, GUM released a national survey asking players what changes they would like to see, and got 126 responses from women who played at the youth level.
Next, GUM reached out to local organizers to conduct focus groups with current youth players in Seattle, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Atlanta, and North Carolina. Youth voices are central to the movement. Meanwhile, a panel of task force representatives, USA Ultimate staff members, and GUM co-chairs met to select the final 5 action items for USA Ultimate to move on.
The panel asked, what's the most important? What's the most needed? What's the most feasible? The Girls Ultimate movement proudly presents our 5 ultimate priorities. 1. Develop media resources for girls.
2. Pilot new girls-focused program each year from 2015 to 2019.
3. Create a curriculum for partnership with youth sports organizations.
4. Organize a national GUM volunteer structure.
5. Research best practices and make recommendations for Youth Ultimate.
Planning and structure for implementation of programs related to these action items will begin in 2014, with approved programming to begin in 2015. Yearly GUM progress reports will be presented in conjunction with the US Open.
We're excited to present the work we've done so far and to invite you to join the Girls Ultimate movement. Together, we have the opportunity to grow the girls division.
So this is where we started with GUM, and a lot has happened since then, and we still have a lot of work to do. So I see someone pointing at the lights. We'll add some lights. So this is the GUM team, and these individuals have been involved in a lot of amazing things that have happened. You saw those 5 ultimate priorities, and what we worked off of was creating working groups for each of those. And so there's been some movement around in this, but currently Rachel Johnson is the National Outreach Director for Girls, and she kind of heads up that volunteer structure that we talked about. Laura Magnotta is the head of the GUM curriculum, which we'll be talking about more. Megan Brown has been involved in our data and analysis and has been working to collect a lot of great data over the last little bit that's going to be starting to publish and roll out here shortly. It will continue to do that so that we can keep getting feedback about what's working, what's not. Sarah Davis has been incredible as the GUM media chair, really helping to get those media resources off the ground and out into the community. Sarah Ancio is the GUM pilot program chair, and so helping us come up with ideas, and her working group is focused on what's something new, what's something creative, and it's kind of neat to think about those ideas. And then obviously Dan and Sarah at USAU have been great in supporting and helping make a lot of these things happen. So the 5 priorities, as were mentioned, are committing to developing enhanced media resources for the girls division, opportunities for girls and women to connect in an online community. The second one was to pilot a new girls-focused program each year. The third, develop a girls curriculum that can be marketed to national youth serving organizations. To pilot and implement a GUM volunteer structure, and then to analyze data, identify best practices, and establish USAU standards on gender and youth ultimate. So Dan's going to take over and talk about the national volunteer structure.
All right, so the volunteer structure is organized to try and take the programming that's created by GUM and spread it out across the country, okay, to make it accessible to everybody. So we have the outreach, which we'll show you sort of visually in a second. We have the outreach coordinators who work in states to run GUM programs, from clinics to gummits and distribution of GUM kits and all of those sort of things. They also are looking to try and find youth-serving organizations to run the curriculum that Heather Ann's going to talk about in a few minutes. So the idea is to take this curriculum, bring it to groups, have them run it, and then continue to build. And to be honest, the curriculum's awesome. You're going to be super impressed. And then also the use and analysis of data, try and build on what has been successful to make it more successful. So how can we take the results of what's occurred, continue to grow, and make it better? So I came on at USA Ultimate in June. They had created a structure that left some people a little bit confused. And it was all done with the best of intentions. And we found that before we used to have this column doing both outreach and competition, and it just left sort of like, who do I talk to, where am I going? And so we took it out. So basically what we created is an entire column of volunteers who their entire focus is growth of Girls Ultimate. And it's outreach based, it's creation of new teams, new players, and expansion of the base. And then, once we build the players, we pass them over to competition. And competition's already running state tournaments, so they just expand the girls division. And that was the theory behind that. So we have creation of programming, outreach, and then competition for the girls side of things. So the top half, the circle is supposed to represent we're all talking to each other. We didn't know how to do it and make it look good, so it doesn't work graphically, but that's what it's supposed to be. So it was an attempt. So you want to go next one? We'll just talk about the top. So this is sort of the top level of the outreach structure. So we have Claire, who's in charge of just outreach as a non-gender outreach. So this would be boys, girls, this would be everybody. We call them SOCs. State Outreach Coordinators fall under there. We have 4 regionals, Allie up in the Northeast, Dave Wiseman in Central. We're looking for 2, so 1 in the West. Convenient that we're here. So we need 2 more people. Their job is basically to help the state people run their programming, to assist them, and to encourage people to join. It's not simple, but it's not massively time consuming. Then we have the middle. Heather Ann already talked about the GUM programming and the 5 tasks that the GUM programming is trying to address, and the outreach that they have there. And then on the left, we have the women's, or the girls, which is essentially the same idea as what's under Claire, except this time it's being run by Rojo. And so what Rojo's doing is she's taking the GUM curriculum and programming, passing it out to the regional directors who are then supporting the state coordinators who are running girls programming. And we call them the Girls State Outreach Coordinators. So these are our coordinators as we currently stand today. Our goal, which is lofty, is to have 100 of these. And we want to have 2 outreach coordinators in every state. One is the SOC, again, that's sort of non-gender based outreach, learn to play programming, coaching development programming, running observer clinics, all of those sort of things. And then we have our Girls State Outreach Coordinators. And the Girls State Outreach Coordinators are taking the GUM program and bringing it to the state. It's their job to take it and bring it down to the local level and make it real in their state. And again, to encourage more girls to play. So, I'm trying to think the next slide is what I think it is. Going to clinics? Oh, okay. So our goal, I sort of created this map. Our goal is to make the country purple. Okay, so these is sort of a map it's awkward to look at, to be honest. The red states don't have any outreach. Blue states also need outreach. Yellow states have 1. Purple states have 2. And our goal is to make every state purple. Maybe every country purple too, but we'll start with the states. So that's where we want to go. That's the goal. I don't remember the text. You got to flip. All right. Part of this philosophy is the idea that local, and we've talked about this a bunch this morning already, local people have a much better sense as to what's happening in the local community. And that's what this is saying. We want people locally who have experience, who know what they're doing, who know the game. We want them, role models, to be the people working in the GUM program, to be presenting the curriculum out, and to be there for the girls and the future players. And that's the idea. All right, so now, and I might have gotten a little bit too creative with my animation on PowerPoint, we'll find out. So, when GUM was created, one of the, and I came in after this was already started, right? So I came in sort of late to the game, because I started last June. And one of the things I learned very quickly from Heather Ann is the philosophy of no barriers. The goal is to make GUM accessible to everyone. And that was the philosophy we had, or that GUM had, and that I adopted, of how to run clinics. So what's been really cool is GUM has run a lot of very different clinics. They're not all the same. They look different, they appear different, they're organized differently, and there's a lot of flexibility. So teams can do a lot of different things. So what I thought I'd do quickly is highlight 3 of them. Okay? First one is, I went too fast. Damn. See? My bad. So these are the places that held clinics. And then after they all show up, we hit it again, a couple flash. Those are the places that held more than one clinic. Okay, so, and this is the first year this program has been in existence. So it's not like it's 100,000 stars. That's actually incredibly good for a first-year program to all go around and run all these clinics all over the country, and for a bunch of places to run more than one, I think is very successful. And I think it's really impressive with how organized this group has been. I mean, they've been awesome. All right, so we're going to focus on Madison, Wisconsin. So now we get the growing star. I don't know. All right. So Madison, Wisconsin is the first place. They had a clinic. It was held, if you want to just keep going, it was held in Bruce Stevens Stadium, which is a really beautiful soccer, football, now ultimate stadium. UW soccer plays there. There's a bunch of, it's a nice facility. So they got a clinic in there, which is pretty cool. And that's the stadium, you can see it there. And what I thought was cool about this is this was a clinic which was organized by Nate Maddox, who is the GSOC for Wisconsin. He's also a high school girls coach. But he didn't run the clinic. He contacted the local club team. And he contacted Heist and then also Noise, which was the co-ed team from Madison. And they had 21 players from Heist and 3 players from Noise. They had 24 women at this clinic, which is awesome. And when you get to the final number, they almost had a 2-to-1 ratio of player to participant, or coach to participant. So these girls had a phenomenal experience, a lot of one-on-one contact, a lot of very experienced players who gave them a lot of direct feedback. And it's awesome. When you're a little kid and you're there with somebody who's that good at the sport and you're just learning, that's an awesome experience. So they had 50 participants. They broke them into 3 groups, I think 8 to 10, 11 to 13, and then high school. They broke them up, did different activities, ran it for a couple hours. Robin said they then had some Heist stuff, and girls were getting, sign my jersey, sign my hat, and all that kind of stuff, which was great for everybody involved. Everybody felt good. And that's their clinic. Okay? The next one is Washington, D.C. So we have to go through the growing star again. Sorry.
There we go.
I don't know what I was thinking. So Washington, D.C. did a completely different thing. They ran 4 clinics. They ran them at 2 locations. They had local volunteers who were organized, not necessarily associated with any one particular team. They ended up with, I believe, like 30 girls, if I remember correctly, and many of them repeated. So the Madison clinic was a one-time thing. This was a 4-time clinic. Right, 4 days, spread out over time, and players could come back and come back and come back. So a completely different idea. Again, you're just using local volunteers and all of that. Yeah. So they had again grades 3 to 8, which tends to be sort of prime audience for the GUM clinics. 30 girls, but a bunch of them attended a bunch of times. So you're getting not one girl one time, but you're getting one girl 3 times, 4 times. Which is pretty awesome. And the last one because if we don't say some nice things about them, they get very angry. The last one's in Seattle, of course. So Seattle, yes, I was sucking up by throwing that up. So Seattle held theirs at Franklin High School. And what was different about their clinic is their clinic was primarily run by their U16 YCC team. And they ran it almost as like a reunion type thing. So this would have been the year after they went to YCC, they came back, they got back together, and they ran a clinic for the middle school girls. Again, just awesome, right? So you have, instead of adult girls, you now have young girls coaching younger girls and spreading the passion. They were assisted by Heather Ann's team, Underground, but it was mostly, right? Your team, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you laughed. I was like, oh,
No,
screwed that up.
I was smiling at the
okay.
Underground player.
So they had assistants, but the girls ran the clinic. Again, creating that connection. I don't know how many people here are high school teachers or have high school age kids. This is something that is done a ton by high schools, primarily high school women's teams, high school girls teams, where the girls team, the varsity basketball team will go to the middle school and they'll run a little basketball program, and they'll do a bunch of stuff. Essentially, it's a great way to build your program. You take your high school girls, you send them to the middle school girls. The middle school girls, when they go to high school, what do? They become ultimate players, right? So, great clinic, really cool idea. 92 girls, of course. And, just a huge, massively successful. And wasn't this the one with the bad weather and you still had 92?
No, this one was the good weather.
Oh, okay.
The weather was this year, and we had about 45 or 50.
Yeah. Rough, tough. I don't know how you guys survived. So, there's flexibility in these clinics, and it was intentional. It was something that was thought out. We wanted people to be able to run clinics how it fit best in their local community, and that's the idea behind this. So, last thing, I think my last thing. So this concept of the packs of gum. Running a clinic by itself is not going to get girls to play ultimate. It takes more than a single day event. You have to have a whole bunch of things happening around the clinics. And that's what this is trying to represent. So you have organizers who are creating leagues or teams or tournaments. You have Girl State outreach coordinators who are creating outreach events like gum clinics. You have ambassadors from teams who are saying to their club team, let's go run a clinic. Let's go spread the word. Let's get girls to play. Let's empower them, make them have better lives, and so on and so forth. So we want to be successful. This can't just be one thing, right? You have to have a bunch of different people. Essentially, it's the entire community has to work together to make sure that these events are successful and that they have lasting impact, and they're not just something, yay, that was fun, and then the girls go off and they're gone. And you never see them ever again. All right?
So moving on to curriculum. I think kind of the motto for GUM is taking a goal and just trying to just overachieve it. That's kind of been our way through and through, and that's what we're going to try to keep doing. So the goal was to create a tiered development program for Girls Ultimate, and we have kind of built beyond that. I'm going to talk about where we're at with that right now, and then USAU contacting youth serving organizations. We've already started some of those partnerships. I'll fill you in on those. And we're already identifying program organizers and trainers at the local level. Maybe some of those might be some of you in the room. And we're trying to run actually 10 pilot programs this year with this new curriculum, not 3 to 4. So the GUM curriculum team is really special to me. And I'm going to give you a quick background story just because I think it's relevant to some of the things we've heard about today. So the chair or the lead developer, our lead developer and our chair for the working group for curriculum is Laura Magnotta. Laura Magnotta has never played Ultimate. Never played Ultimate. She's not someone who is friends with a bunch of Ultimate players, dating Ultimate players, none of those things. She's actually one of my friends from high school. And when we were trying to find someone to take on this position, she was at Boys and Girls Club in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Back in Wakeman Boys and Girls Club is really big in Fairfield County area of Connecticut, and they started in 1913 providing programming to youth I grew up in the Wakeman Boys and Girls Club system, and it was mostly in a suburban area with high and middle income class families participating. In 2011, Wakeman opened a clubhouse, Smilo Burroughs Clubhouse in Bridgeport, in an area where there are struggling schools and housing developments and challenging street environments, and created similar programming for the youth in that community. And Laura was a program director there, and I thought, what a great person to get involved in Ultimate, what a great person to talk to about how can this work outside of our community where we all play and we know Ultimate, how can we get this to other communities where that's not the regular. And she jumped right in and has put a ton of hours into making this happen. She'll be at the US Open this year for those who will be there, and it will be her first time watching Ultimate and first time involved in that. And I'm just really excited about it and really thankful for how much that she's put in. And also feeding off of that, this team of curriculum developers, which includes Val, who's sitting here, and Zara poured her soul into this curriculum. This group of people have been incredible. When you see this, this is the work that they have done and put hours over the last year into making happen. Right now, we're going to show, we've also had a ton of editors from a bunch of different places. You can see we have a bunch of different backgrounds on this group of developers, trying to get the perspective, what you heard about earlier. How can we reach players who aren't playing? And how can we make this so someone who doesn't play Ultimate can go and introduce the sport that we love to more girls? So we also had a bunch of youth editors. Those are some of the YCC girls who contributed to looking this over and saying, hey, as a middle school girl, this looks great to me, or these are things I'd change. So without further ado, the way this is set up is we have a facilitator's manual with the GUM curriculum, and this first version is middle school. Hopefully our plan is to work on high school next, but hopefully we'll also approach elementary school in the long run, creating kind of all of those tiers of development. One of the great things about this, exactly what Dan was talking about, this also presents an opportunity for high school girls to get involved, for high school girls to go and help with this middle school curriculum and help to kind of be leaders and role models here as well. A few important credits on this. There's a facilitator manual kind of letter at the beginning, and Tino Tran has done a lot of photography for GUM that you'll see throughout, and that is just for us to support the Girls Ultimate movement, which has been incredible. And Katie Dyer has done all the design work on this. So credits to her for making this all look really good and not just a Word document. And like I said, Zara was really involved in getting this off the ground, as was Mike in giving a lot of support in the early stages. So what I want to do is walk you through one of our sessions and what it looks like, and tell you a little bit about how it's structured, and then tell you about the overall program. So session 4 is focused on conflict resolution, and the goals of the GUM curriculum is to combine that idea of leadership, bring in that idea of belonging and relationships, and build from there. So it is a lot more of activities and games, and then some Frisbee, but its focus is kind of bigger than just Frisbee. So in this session, the objectives are to discuss what a conflict is and where we see it in our own lives, to talk about negative and positive aspects to conflict, explore how to use conflict resolution in life, and then talk a little bit about an ultimate community project, which the girls plan over the course of this curriculum. So kind of starting off with an opening circle, talking about conflict and giving opportunities to talk about where in your life have you dealt with conflict. So creating a safe space that we've talked about today for conversation. Some games to be interactive and connect, and then moving on to kind of how does this theme relate to the field. So when we talk about relating the field, we're talking about problem solving in this context. One of the activities that I think is really cool, and I have zero credit for, just the team did a great job with this, is explain that you're a mad scientist and that you have many brilliant and creative ideas. So life doesn't always work as planned. You have to write about these ideas and then kind of talk about where you run into problems and how to find solutions. So it's kind of a fun, interactive way kind of think outside the box. And not all the ideas are the same. It creates kind of similar themes and different themes, and building off of that. And so explaining kind of to the team that there might be various solutions, but all those solutions can lead to success. And that's kind of part of that messaging in there. Continuing off of that, talking about how does that get put into play in the context of your life, right? Have you ever had a conflict with someone you were in a competition with? So now we're talking about ultimate. What happened? How did that get figured out? And maybe that's not about ultimate. Maybe you're competing in the classroom with something. Maybe you're competing on the playground. How do you draw that together? There's some more brainstorming. I'll talk a little more about the community project in a second. But then putting it in play. And we've talked today about girls having a voice and speaking up. And so even at this early stage of teaching ultimate in the curriculum, we're talking about how to self-officiate, how to call your own fouls, how to resolve conflict on the field, and how to talk about that. And that's something that, as a coach of girls at a few different levels, girls are really tentative to make calls. Even at the club level, girls are tentative. I, as a player, sometimes am tentative to make a call. And so how can we kind of encourage that from step one and make that okay, make that part of the culture? It's okay to say, hey, I think that this didn't go right, and okay to talk that through. And so going through that really early, and then creating an opportunity to work on that. So guarding with contact. So now we've moved into ultimate, but we're towards the end of this particular curriculum session. And so we're guarding with contact and getting used to calling fouls, getting used to using that voice. And then playing a game that puts that into play. A keep away game in a small space. So there's going to be conflict, or there's going to be contact that's happening, and being able to call that when it occurs. And wrapping up, we kind of go back to a goals sheet and a SMART worksheet every single session. And it's a way of kind of bringing it all back together at the end, and building together and kind of setting goals over the course of the curriculum. At the end of the curriculum, there's a great certificate, so players feel like they really participated in something, and they can walk away with that as like, this is something I did, I accomplished this thing. So these are our sessions. So it's an 8-session progression, and the goal is for the last session to be an ultimate community project, and that can be inviting parents and guardians out to come and learn from the girls. And we've talked about teaching and how when girls have the opportunity to teach, they've learned, like that's empowering, that builds confidence. So we want to end our programs with that opportunity for them to go, I really know something, like I know about this Frisbee thing, like I know ultimate. And for them to really feel inspired by that, and excited about that. And so the sessions kind of focus on different things, and you'll see that none of them focus on how to throw backhand, how to throw forehand, how to sky somebody. Those aren't what we're going for. It's different pieces that are so critical to the culture of our sport. And if you can build that value and culture, you're working on that belonging, you're working on those relationships, you put all that together. You have girls who are inspired and excited to be a part of this. And so session 1 is building our team. Session 2 is on cooperation means communication. Session 3, diversity and inclusion. 4, conflict resolution. 5, being a great teammate. 6, personal discipline. 7, self-advocacy, which is that last one, super important for girls. Being able to provide a space and teach them the skills to advocate for themselves on and off the field is going to be important for whatever they're going to do in life. And then finally, the ultimate community project, where they have a chance to give back, and they also have a chance to kind of really show that they've learned something, and feel that confidence and inspiration. How can people access the curriculum? I'll talk a little bit about the pilot program. So before I do that, we want every community to be able to do this. We don't want there to be a barrier for access to doing this. So the curriculum is completely on the website. It actually launched while we were here this morning. It has its own curriculum tab from the main page, and every single session is up there with the session PDFs. There are a ton of video resources. A huge thank you to Val for the video resources. Many of those are thanks to him, and they are phenomenal. Associated PDFs for each lesson. Just a quick snapshot. This is what this lesson is about. This is our objectives. This is what we're trying to skill build for ultimate. And then it has kind of all the different resources in different groups so that it's easy to download, easy to look at. A special thank you on the website. Skip Sewell is our web developer and has done an incredible job of making the GUM site easy to use, easy to access. Sarah Davis has done a great job of helping figure out exactly how should we make these things look, how should we set this up. And Stacy Waldrop at USAU has been great at editing things for me at the last minute. We have a blog post going up in 2 hours. Can you look at that? She's wonderful. And so it's accessible to any community to be able to take this and run with it and give it a try. Also, iPhone friendly, smartphone friendly. So this is kind of a screenshot or 2 screenshots of an iPhone. So if you're out there running this session, you can pull up the PDF, you can look through it, just making it so that as few barriers as possible. So our goal, we want everyone to be able to run this. We want anyone to be able to pick this curriculum up and just go with it. However, we also want to make sure it's going to work. We want to make sure that we're getting feedback on this. And so our goal is to pilot this through a bunch of these youth-serving organizations. And that creates 2 things. One, it gives us the ability to set up a structure where we can get feedback. And we're asking pilot programs to participate in pre-curriculum surveys and post-curriculum surveys and give us a bit of feedback. And there's kind of a trade-off in there. We're asking to get 10 of those. The second piece is that if the Girl Scouts go and they run this curriculum in one community and it's awesome and they're super excited, the hope is they then go and talk to the national organization or other Girl Scout organizations in their area and say, hey, this was really great. And they now become a voice for GUM within the Girl Scout community. And our hope is to do that in as many youth-serving organizations as we can, especially because the curriculum is designed that you don't have to have that ultimate background to be able to pick this up and be a leader and be a coach for this. So a few GUM curriculum pilot programs that are already established to be happening this year are school-based curriculum program in Rhode Island, community center program in Maryland, the Boys and Girls Club that I talked about in Connecticut, Girl Scouts in Seattle, and the Girl Scout in Seattle is trying to target a low-income area, so hopefully getting some feedback as how this can work in different communities too, not just in mainstream communities. And then Take the Field in North Carolina, which many of the Take the Field, some participants and also many of the leaders of Take the Field were also involved in the design of the curriculum, and so they're going to also help pilot that and see how it all works and comes together. So for the pilot program, kind of said there's a give and take there. We're asking for a lot of information. We're asking for information before, kind of how things are set up, and we're asking for a lot of feedback throughout so that we can really structure and make edits to the curriculum if we need to. And so kind of the piece of that is if a program, we've set aside 10 GUM kits for pilot programs. So if there's a pilot program, they will receive supplies and materials to be able to run that clinic. And then we're going to ask them to do a blog post of the program at the end of the clinic. And so on the GUM blog, being able to highlight how this went for them and get feedback and really kind of spotlight some of these programs and these volunteers out here that are doing this. So looping back to the volunteers in the context of the curriculum, how can people get involved? That's kind of the question we continually get is, GUM's awesome, what can I do? How can I get involved? And so you can run a GUM clinic. Dan talked about those, running a GUM clinic in your community or helping run a GUM clinic in your community, piloting the GUM curriculum, like that's a great opportunity, or maybe you have a connection at a youth-serving organization that might be interested in running that curriculum, so reaching out about that. We're still trying to turn the country purple, so become a GSOC or a GUM ambassador, write a GUM blog post. We're really looking for people to use their voices and talk about girls in Ultimate, women in Ultimate, their experiences, and we've had some great blog posts already, but getting more of those out there. Also, adding on to that, these headbands, they're really cool. You see, all the cool kids are wearing them. You should probably get one. You can purchase them on the 5 Ultimate store, and a portion of the sales from that, and also these sweet GUM bags that came out recently. They hold a disc. They're awesome. They can go on your back. Those all support GUM programs. Posting photos, showing off your GUM swag around the world. is always the picture of Rory and Claire Chastain there is from Dubai. So as many gum headbands around the world as we can get. And then be creative. So Zara was an awesome partner in crime for me in gum, and when we started everything out, and she is kind of focusing more on the local level now, but she's still innovating and creating ideas we can use. So actually, this is something that their community just did. Someone asked about this earlier, like setting up local fundraising. They set up this Girls Ultimate in the DMV, which is the Baltimore, DC area, funding site. And their goal for raising this money is to create a few different things. One, they want to fund 5 gum clinics in their area. They want to provide scholarships for some players playing on the U19 girls YUCC YCC team, and this will be the first year that team exists. They want to create some funding to help support coaches in the area with stipends, help get more female coaches out helping out, help other youth that need scholarships for local level participation, provide discs for girls events. And finally, they're also trying to raise money to send a single player to the National Ultimate Training Camp in Amherst as part of this. And so they're doing this at the local level and piloting this out. And this is something Backhanded is helping run and organize. And so innovation credit to Zara for that. But be creative. One of the things about gum is a lot of these ideas came from just people in the community who were creative and said, I have an idea. What if we did this? What if we tried this? And that's kind of been the inspiration of the movement, has been the community at large. So being creative is a great way to keep building gum. So for 2016, our goals for the future are to color the country purple. We want to get all of those girls and outreach coordinators around the country. Pilot the gum middle school curriculum, 10 different, hopefully unique youth serving organizations out there running this curriculum, giving feedback on it, and getting it out to more people beyond that. Beginning the work on the gum high school curriculum is a big focus in that group. There are some YCC gum research results that we're hoping to publish, and we're also hoping to publish the results we get from the gum curriculum pilot programs as well. And so our data group's working on that. We want to keep generating awesome media resources. We want to get our blog up and running more. We have 2 youth editors, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and we want to get more blog posts out there and more social media presence. We also want to, we've talked a little bit about getting more gum clinics and really trying to highlight those in a media aspect. And then developing 2016 pilot programs. And so there's been chatter about what that looks like and what that pilot program might be. And one kind of thing in the context of that is creating an inspired by gum option. So one thing about gum is, besides just what has happened in the US, is we're getting contacts from people around the world who want to run gum clinics and do gum things. And some of that is outside of exactly what we can do, but we want to give them the opportunity to run inspired by gum, like something that still says, hey, this is something really cool that's inspired us to do this in our community. And so kind of seeing that reaching effort has been really neat. Follow us, like us, Instagram us. Just, help us spread the word, help be that presence, and keep getting information out for us. That would be great. I think that's it.
It's live.
It is live.
Everyone is live.
gum.usaultimate.org.
Any question before? I know you're hungry, huh? There's not enough food, I told you. Any question?
Not a question, just a comment. Awesome. Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about your pilot program for high school girls?
Yeah, definitely. That is still in the works, and so that was kind of the next step. I think there are a number of facilitators who have been involved in Take the Field and organizers for Take the Field, which is a program in North Carolina that is focused a little more on the high school level. It is a little more focused on more experienced players, like girls who have been playing and building in that leadership component as well. And so we're still trying to develop, at the high school level, does it make sense to create a GUM-based program that is similar to middle school, where you are doing more relationship building in some skill introduction, so you're focused on a population who maybe hasn't played at all? Or do we want the high school curriculum to be an extension of this middle school curriculum, where you take it to the next level? And so if you have ideas or feedback on that, we're looking for voices who want to be involved in kind of guiding some of that.
Okay, so in my mind, I'm thinking, could like a female player on my high school team run this curriculum in the local middle school? Or is this beyond a high school player to actually run the GUM curriculum? Or is the GUM curriculum developed enough and tested enough, through your pilot program, that you'd want to put that in the hands of a high school girl?
Sure, that's a great question. I think that this is definitely a curriculum that could be run by a high school player. I think we want to do some more of the pilot programs. We wouldn't want to just send a high schooler off to run this on her own right now, partially because there's a lot of liability and responsibility there, and so we want to oversee that early on. But I think that this is definitely a program that the way it is structured, that a high school girl or a couple girls from a team could work together to run this. The way the ratio is meant to be set up is this is for no more than 20 girls. We recommend 10 to 20. We recommend a 1 to 10 ratio at a minimum. So the more it's a smaller group, and you could have one high school or two high school players running a 10-girl series of this, and I think that would probably be really successful. But you may also want those high schoolers to build some leadership skills going into that.
That's good.
What would you say to somebody who wants to use your curriculum to coach young boys?
That's great. That's a great question. I don't know, what are we doing with time to play? So for the curriculum, a lot of the things in there are things you probably could use with either gender. I mean, it's not set up to be girl specific, but it's set up with a lot of the information we've gathered of, what works well for girls. But that's not to mean that those things may not work well for boys as well. We talked earlier, I think Kathy brought up the kind of emotional intelligence and that idea of team charter and those pieces, right? And that emotional intelligence and team charter stuff works really well for girls' teams. It's not as intuitive for boys' teams, but it also works really well for boys' teams, and I think the same is true of something like this. If you were to look through all the pieces in there, there's nothing that's really girl-specific. So it's, it probably could be applicable.
That's point.
Someone once told me that girls have to have fun to win and boys have to win to have fun. Is that true, or have you heard that before?
So
True for the boys.
I think, true for the boys. The boys are very into that. I think for the girls, they really want to have fun. They want to build community. You sit down, I've coached boys and girls, and you sit down at the beginning of the season with the boys and you say, what do you want out of the season? And they're like, we want to win. We want to beat everyone. And I sit down with my girls who have, goals of winning, but they are very far down on the list of things they will tell me until I kind of pull it out of them. They're like, we want to be really spirited, and we want to have all friends with everybody. We want to be really inclusive. We want to be a really good community. I'm coaching a high school girls team. We just started practice last week, and we did a kind of value-based charting. And I think this is really interesting, and it was interesting to talk through it with them this week. So I'll share it. They had to rank the team based on a few different attributes, one of which was skill, one of which was experience, and they had to then rank themselves as individuals. It was all anonymous. And they ranked the team's skill and experience really high. But overall, the individual ranking of skill and experience, a bit lower. And then I asked them to tell me what the team's strengths were, and I don't think any of them mentioned anything about ultimate. We're spirited, we have really good spirit, we're really inclusive, we're a great community, we work hard, and then their, areas for improvement were mostly ultimate related. But then we got down to the individual piece of what's individual strengths, what are individual weaknesses. or individual areas for improvement, depending on how you want to look at it. Height is something you may not be able to improve. And I read them the list of strengths, I read them the list of improvements, and I said, what do you guys notice? And they're like, well, everything on the improvement list was also on the strength list. And this idea, like, you can learn from each other to build as a team. And that concept of we've got each other in this was what they wanted. And so, yeah, they want, then we mapped out our goals, and sure, they want to win. They set some really lofty goals. But the way they want to get there isn't being super aggressive and competitive. The way they want to get there is together. And I think that's the difference I've seen. The boys, they want to get there, and they're going to be aggressive, and they're going to go for it. And the girls are like, we want to win, but like, we want to win. That would be the difference I see.
Thank you so much.